What lengths would you go to protect your secret? In Mark Redwine's case, he went as far as to murder his own son. Before the tragedy, recently divorced Mark Redwine and Elaine Hall fought for custody of their two sons, Corey and Dylan.
As Corey would later put it, his father could be a cruel and violent man, someone who had deep-seated issues which, rather than dealing with, he often chose to take out on them instead.
13-year-old Dylan would support these claims as well. This led to Elaine getting full custody of the boys, while Mark would get semi-regular court-mandated visitations. But the real bombshell came in 2011 during a father-son road trip. Dylan and Corey had accidentally uncovered compromising pictures of Mark. To their horror, they discovered their father was a coprophiliac, a person who has a fetish for uncleanliness and even consuming feces. Pictures showed Mark wearing lingerie and eating feces from a diaper. The brothers struggled to go on without confronting him. Preemptively, Corey had downloaded the incriminating pictures to his phone as proof so Mark couldn't deny them.
During a text argument with him not long after, he sent him a message which read, quote, "Hey beautiful, you are what you eat. Look in the mirror."
Mark read between the lines and now saw his sons as a threat to him. Before the following Thanksgiving, Dylan had begged his mother to let him stay, but it would have violated the court-mandated ruling. Being 20 years old, Corey was not required to see his father, and so he stayed with his mother and stepfather. He had no idea what was to come. Dylan attempted to set up other sleeping arrangements with friends in Mark's area, but Mark rejected the idea. Without any other choice, Dylan boarded a plane and was met by Mark at the airport.
The two were seen walking outside together, apparently under civil terms. And when further surveillance footage captured them at a Walmart almost 2 hours later at 7:05 p.m., the atmosphere between the two appeared to be similar.
Mark forced Dylan to cancel plans he had made that evening with an old schoolmate. So Dylan changed the plans to the following morning at 6:30 a.m. He did not show up. Mark recounted to the police that he left Dylan in bed that morning to run errands, which was later confirmed by investigators. When he returned, Dylan and his belongings were gone.
So do you remember what the last thing you said to him when you went out the door was?
Yeah, Dylan, I'm leaving to go down to town and run my errands. If you need anything, call me when you get up. If there's anything you need. Never heard from him. I'd send him text messages.
He later contacted Elaine. She herself reported him missing and started the 6-hour drive to Mark with Corey and her husband.
So Search and Rescue launched an immediate search the same day that Dylan was reported missing and looked all over this area. Mark lived near the San Juan National Forest and the San Juan Mountains, so the extensive wilderness obviously makes the search a lot more difficult.
At this point, Mark was acting suspicious, not assisting in the search efforts or even coming out of his house, though he did insist that the search be focused on a lake 7 miles away. People also noticed that he spoke about Dylan in the past tense. His ex-wife revealed to investigators that years prior, Mark had told her that if he ever had to hide a body, it would be in the mountains.
Betsy Horvath has long believed Mark Redwine killed his son Dylan.
Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
Because it is violent.
She too was involved in a custody dispute with him. They had 2 kids together. According to this indictment, he told Horvath that he would kill the kids before he let her have them.
When Elaine arrived, Mark tried to implicate her, but it ultimately made him look even more suspicious. On November 28th, police released an official statement saying that Dylan was not considered a runaway. They also searched Mark's house.
Investigators are executing a search warrant at Mark Redwine's house in a heavily timbered area northeast of Durango. This is video of the search from DurangoHerald.com. Sheriff's Office spokesman Dan Bender says 15 members of the Dylan Redwine Task Force, which includes experts from the FBI and CBI, are helping in the search.
Traces of Dylan's blood were found inside, but Mark attributed it to roughhousing. Interestingly enough, Mark theorized that Dylan could have gone hiking and been accidentally shot by a hunter. At this point, Elaine outright accused him of being involved in his disappearance. Around this time, Corey informed the investigative team about the uncovered photos. The case received massive public attention after Mark, Elaine, and Corey went on the Dr. Phil show. Corey was adamant that Mark had contributed nothing towards the search for Dylan.
Why do you call your father Mark instead of Dad or
Because he's not a father to me. A father is someone who cares for their kids and, would do anything for them. be a role model, someone to look up to.
I believe that you're being very disrespectful, and I believe that everything that's coming out of your mouth is perpetuated by your
I have
mother.
my own mouth. I can say
Then
my
use
own
it.
words.
Then use it.
I am at you. I don't like you. I hate you.
Mark maintained his innocence, but when given the option to take a polygraph test to prove it, he refused.
Mark Redwine told Dr. Phil he doesn't trust the polygraph process. He says he was polygraphed by authorities shortly after Dylan's disappearance. He was told he failed it, but then later informed the person who administered the test wasn't qualified.
A massive turn in the case would come in June of the following year. Dylan's partial remains were found off a trail about 8 miles away from Mark's house. Bones and tattered clothing were all that was left of him. However, the investigation could not find a cause of death because Dylan's skull was missing. Motivation and circumstantial evidence were all they had. It wasn't until 2.5 years later, in late 2015, when Dylan's skull was found by 2 hikers 1 mile from the rest of his body. It was finally confirmed that blunt force trauma was the cause of death.
It was at that point, and only at that point, that after confirming blunt force trauma had indeed occurred, and that it was highly unlikely that an animal was responsible for the skull being so far apart from the rest of Dylan's remains, that the case was officially deemed to be a homicide investigation.
It would take 2 more years to build a concrete case against Mark. His arrest came in July of 2017. He was charged with second-degree murder and child abuse. The trial date was pushed back 3 times and finally took place in June of 2021. In the end, he was sentenced to 48 years on both counts with 5 years of parole. The judge concluded, "The community needs to be protected from you." Thanks for watching this episode of Crime 101. Be sure to subscribe to see more videos like this.